Good morning, everybody. We are back, and we are back in the United States for this one, and this is a very interesting clinic we got going on. It is about little tiny Lego bricks. I'm sure you have all seen them. Our gentleman's name is Monty Smith, and he is a music teacher from Northern Virginia. Mr. Monty Smith, take it away, please.
All right. Good morning, everybody. Hello from Fairfax Station in Virginia, and I'm really excited to be here, and I'm happy to share my Lego trains with you. My goal for today, I'm going to play a video, or at least we're going to try. I've just been told it might not work too well, but we'll try. I'm going to share a tour of my show layout with you, which is set up behind the camera today, and then I'm going to talk through kind of the technology of Lego trains and the advancements in the hobby in the last few years. So let me get the screen share going here and see if we can get that video to cooperate. We're going to have just a little bit of video feedback. I open that up. I'm going to get that super long tunnel. Come on, where's my share? Let's share that. There we go. Open the video. And let's see. Where's my play button? There we go. Come on. Come on, computer. I apologize. The screen share button is right in the way of the play button. There we go.
The first thing to say about my layout is that this is not set up in my house.
Can you guys hear that audio?
Fairfax Station Railroad Museum in Virginia, where I got my start on displaying my Lego trains at public shows about 18 years ago when I was only 11 years old.
Do you have that audio, guys?
We maintain a very good relationship together, and when I asked to set up here to video my layout for live streaming, they were more than happy to oblige.
We do.
Okay, good.
From its spot at the bottom of the hill next to the Washington-Atlanta main line and reassembled piece by piece on a donated plot of land at the top of the hill in the late 1980s. Donated by Norfolk Southern in the early 1990s, and keen observers will note that it's actually a Norfolk and Western caboose with a bit of modeler's license for the Southern paint scheme. I've actually built a model of this exact caboose, but before we talk about it, layout
excellent
in order, so let's head back inside. So this is my traveling show layout, and as you can see, it is built entirely out of Lego bricks. My show layout varies in size based on the space available for me in a given venue, but it usually runs around 300 square feet, including the dead space in the middle. Because I use sectional track and scenery, I have the luxury, or curse, of redesigning my layout for different shows. Typically, I'll have a general plan for a season that I will modify slightly by venue. I'll run that layout in the same general configuration for a few shows, then take a break for a couple months and come up with 8 or 10 shows.
Okay.
Many of the same general elements, such as tunnels and bridges, though they all get renovated and improved on a regular basis. So let's get started with the tunnel. Now, a tunnel is something that I think is a must-have for public display layouts because kids love tunnels. On a previous run of shows, I managed to set up a loop inside the mountain so a long train would disappear entirely from view in a tunnel that appeared to be shorter than the train. Right now, I'm trying something a little different. I have a switch from the outside main line leading into a hidden staging area where I have a long loop to store my ore train, as well as a shorter stub end siding for another train. I've never used hidden staging on my show layouts before, so this is an experiment. Another thing I haven't used before in a show layout are these backdrops, which are 3 16-inch thick foam core poster boards in a sky blue color. They are secured to each other with gaffer tape, and they are secured to the display with Lego-built mounts, which ended up being the easiest mounting option, as directly mounting to the tables would be difficult with the tablecloth in the way. Speaking of, the tablecloths are new as well. I used green ones for many years, then I switched to gray ones about 2 years ago. I thought the gray would look more professional, but it was actually rather dull and made empty spaces stand out too much. So now I've got these black ones, which are sized to serve as both the tabletop cloth and the skirting. When I used separate skirting, it required a lot of time to cut up strips of Velcro, stick them around the layout edges, and then I would have to take them back off the tables after the show because I used venue tables. Or at least I used to use venue tables. This layout is about half venue tables and half my tables. I've been buying 30 by 60 inch plastic folding tables, some of which are height adjustable so I can make some hills and valleys. I also used cuts of MDF board, as you can see here, to create different elevations on the same table. Some might say this method is a bit haphazard, but it's important to note that this needs to be easy to assemble and disassemble. And the smaller and flatter it is, the more of it I can fit in the back of my truck. The reason I've been buying my own tables is twofold. One, because I'm sick and tired of venue tables being in terrible condition. And two, for easier layout collaboration with other LEGO train modelers via the L-Gauge Modular Standard. The L-Gauge Modular Standard, or LGMS, was introduced in 2019, setting up a framework so that LEGO train enthusiasts could meet up and, regardless of club affiliation, easily assemble a modular layout together, much in the same way that N-Track or Freemode folks do. I was very pleased this last February when I served as the layout coordinator for the second ever LGMS display at the Great Scale Model Train Show in Timonium, Maryland. A standard straight module size for LGMS is a 30 by 30 inch square, which is the amount of space that this bridge scene takes up. So a single 30 by 60 folding table will therefore support 2 straight modules. This tunnel is actually one of my LGMS models, and I'll point out a couple more as we move around the layout. On the opposite side of the tunnel, we come to a Y, which leads to the freight yard. In years past, my freight yards have been sort of in line with the rectangle of the whole layout, spread out alongside the main lines. But for this show, I decided to try a yard on a peninsula. Because I have the luxury, or curse, of redesigning my layout for different shows, I can try out these different things since my scenery isn't glued down and my track is sectional. This sort of flexibility does make it easier to cooperate with show organizers, as I can fit my layout into an odd corner or stretch and squeeze it as needed to fit the available floor space. So the tail of the Y comes together and leads to the arrival departure tracks and the yard lead. So the yellow engine there is sitting on the yard lead, and the orange caboose is on one of the arrival departure tracks. The switch between those two takes us to the engine house, which is missing most of its roof, so folks can peer inside and see the locomotives getting repaired. I currently roster 12 locomotives and over 60 freight cars. I like to build up long trains for shows, and it's no fun having to switch them by hand, or worse, having to take them out of the boxes to set them up, then take them off and put them away before I can get out another train. So whenever I can, I set up a layout with at least some storage sidings, if not a full yard, to spare myself the fuss of moving trains in and out of boxes all weekend. Moving on from the Y and freight yard, we come to the industrial area of the layout. This section is still under development, but it currently includes my cold storage warehouse flat and my orange warehouse, which is based on a prototype building in Richmond, Virginia. Following the industrial area is a small bit of town. We have a fire station, there's a train station a little further down, and this concert hall with working lights. It is lovingly named after the long-gone Jack's nightclub, which was in Springfield, Virginia. My road vehicles are a mix of official LEGO sets, third-party instructions, and some designs by colleagues, as well as, of course, my own designs. On that note, I'll point out that about 90% of my layout is my own design. I design all the scenery and most of the rolling stock by myself, but lately I've been getting into third-party train instructions and collaborating with friends on designs. We'll talk more about third-party instructions later, but for now we'll continue the tour, where our next stop is the low trestle scene. On Instagram, I made a favorites folder called Scenespirations for scenes that really inspired me to model. And after a while, I realized that the vast majority of that folder was made up of photos of low trestles. So here's my low trestle. This one is double tracked, but I can rearrange the components to make it single track. I can make it shorter or longer as well. Most of my show layouts are double track, and while I'd like to keep 2 independent loops, I'm experimenting with having the main lines split away from each other for part of the layout, giving me the opportunity to model some single track scenes. For this weekend, that didn't really work out, but we'll try again next time. The last stop on our round the layout tour is easily the most popular thing I've ever built, my double track bascule bridge. This bridge is over 5 feet long, spans a gap of nearly 40 inches, and yes, of course, it works. The whole point of building this bridge was so that I could get in and out of the inside of my layout without having to crawl underneath the tables all the time. Although that was back when I was using a different power system, and I had to stay inside near the throttle to operate the trains. Nowadays, I'm running on battery power and remote control. Speaking of the trains, they're the last topic to cover in this first portion of my presentation. I very specifically modeled the 1980s. Second generation diesels are the order of the day, and pre-graffiti era means that the freight cars still sport big, interesting logos and railroad names, as well as cabooses. As I will explain in part 2, I recently dismantled my entire collection of Lego trains and began rebuilding to a different scale, so all the rolling stock you see was assembled within the last 15 months. Among the many reasons I switched was the fact that I wanted to run longer trains with bigger engines. Therefore, the first train I built was my ore train. It is led by a Cartier M636 and a BHP iron ore C636U, which is a bit of a modeler's license. The Australian Mining Railroad for BHP rebuilt their C636s to have a more comfortable cab and replace the prime mover, but I chose to only put the cab on here, so this road number doesn't actually exist. The ore train is 24 cars long, and the design of the ore gondolas is an amalgamation of Canadian and Australian designs, which I simplified to make it easier to build lots of them. Once I had scratched that long-awaited itch, I moved on to general freight equipment. I have my Southern SD45, which I like to lash up with my Southern SD24, and sometimes the Norfolk and Western GP30, a consist signaling the impending Norfolk Southern merger of 1982. I have a Southern Bay window caboose and a cupola NNW caboose that matches the prototype caboose outside of the museum. I also have an LLPX Leaser GP40X, an Apache Railway C420, an LTV Mining RS11 that sometimes pulls ore train duty, a Lego-themed SF30C, and finally my Alco T6 and MT4 Slug yard switching team. I could talk about my freight cars all day, but the clock is ticking, so I'm just going to point out a few highlights. This is my Virginian and Ohio hopper car in honor of the pioneering work of Alan McClelland. I have a whole series of incentive per diem box cars, which will give some color and uniqueness to my rolling stock. All my stickers are done by OK Brickworks, who does most of the decal work for most of the Lego train builders out there. I have my Thrall door box car, which I recently completed. And then we come to a perennial crowd pleaser, the aquarium car. Now this car, I actually was inspired to build this by a member of a local O-scale club who built one that had actual live fish in it. Now, I don't think I could pull off the actual live fish with the Lego. The water would just leak out all the time. So I've just got the Lego sharks in there, the Lego octopus, that sort of thing. But kids love this car. They're always calling it the shark car for good reason. Now, I mentioned earlier that not all of my rolling stock is designed by me. Instructions for this Procore tank car are available from Brick Train Depot. My colleague Cam modified the instructions for this car to produce this monstrous thing, which I don't think is even going to fit in frame. Let's see. Nope, it doesn't fit. We'll have to take it to another cut. All right, here we go. So this is the 8-axle tank car, and yes, these did really exist. The real ones are about 94 feet long, which makes this one about 26 inches long in 1/48 scale. And it is so large, it had to be designed to come apart in 2 sections just so I could fit it in the boxes to bring it to the shows. And again, this was designed based on modifying the Brick Train Depot tank car design. And the other major producer of Lego train instructions is Brick Model Railroader. They also provide some journalism for the Lego train community in the form of interviews, show reports, and articles about modeling techniques. I have a few of their models on the workbench. They're waiting for parts orders to arrive before I can finish them. And at the moment, I do not have any official Lego train sets on my layouts. I'm going to finish the layout tour with a demonstration freight, a long manifest trundling by nice and slow so we can all have a good look at some of my freight cars. And then once the caboose is past the camera, we will switch over to the live side for the second half of my presentation.
All right, so let me turn off the screen share here. Where do we stop doing that? There's the button to stop doing that. All right, and we're still live, yeah? So let's pick up where a little bit of Lego train history. So Lego trains actually began over 50 years ago with battery-operated trains. They had track that had separate rails and ties that you had to put together. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to procure an example of this. And then in the 80s, they moved on to track power. So much like a conventional model train, you could plug it into the wall and it would run. They had a center rail system, much like Lionel. And then in the 1990s, they came out with the 9-volt system. So you have this kind of sectional track. As you can see, it's got metal rails on the top of it. And let me turn my camera over here, get my circle in the view. Yep, there we go. So this is a circle of 9-volt track, and again, just like a conventional model train, you can plug it into the wall, and it goes. So for that system, this was indeed the entire motor. Let me pull that up here so you can get a look. All you had to do was stick this underneath your train, and it would run. But in the early 2000s, the European Union came back to Lego, and they effectively said, if you're making toys that plug into the wall, then you are a model train company and you have to follow model train company rules. And the Lego company said, we're not a model train company. So they switched over to battery powered trains and plastic tracks. So if we compare our two pieces of track, let me get my camera back in the middle here. Here's the 9-volt track with the metal tipped rails, and here's the all plastic sectional track. So if you're going to build a Lego train today, this is what you would end up with a starter kit. So this system is called power functions. The idea of power functions was for Lego to bring all their automated motorization, all that kind of stuff under sort of one big umbrella so that whatever Lego thing you bought, the motorized parts would be compatible. So this has a train motor, much the same size as the 9-volt one we just saw. Go on, back in there. Then it has this battery box for AAA batteries up top, and it has an IR remote receiver. So we just turn on our battery box, and oh goodness, what channel did I leave this on? There we go. And here's my controller, and the train goes. So then all you have to do is build whatever you want around this configuration, and you have a Lego train. So if you bought a Lego train set today, you'd get that, or you'd get the newer system, which is called Powered Up, that is effectively the same setup. It just happens to run on Bluetooth. And then we get to the wheels. So this is a Lego train wheel set. Once again, if you bought a Lego train today, this is what you would get. It's perfectly adequate for building small Lego train sets and that sort of thing. And here is a freight car that represents the general size of official Lego trains. So when we compare that to the track gauge, there we go. So we compare this to the track gauge, you can see it's a little narrow because real trains, they overhang the track, don't they, by a couple of feet or so. So that is where the 8-wide system comes in. So Lego train enthusiasts basically figure out, what if we started building our trains a little wider to the track gauge that would look more realistic? So here's a tank car built in 8-wide, and we'll set that on the track here. We can get a look at just how wide that is. Oh, go on, get on the track. I'll pick that up here so you can get a better look. So you can see it's a little wider, and therefore it's just a more realistic proportion of train to track. And 8-wide, when I say 8-wide, what I'm referring to is the Lego studs. So the studs are the characteristic little bumps up on the top of a Lego piece. So when I say that this train is 6 wide, I'm saying that it's 6 studs wide from side to side. And then 8 wide, when you build to 8 wide scale, you are building an almost exactly 1/48 scale. And then, well, sorry, I lost my train of thought a moment. There are other widths of Lego train depending on what scale you want to build in. So in Europe, for instance, they build in 1/45 scale. There are also people who build in 7 wide, which is closer to, goodness, lost my train of thought again. I think it's closer to like 155, something like that. And then there are people who build 10 wide, which is about 1/38 scale. And the trouble you have is that the track gauge and the size of a Lego figure do not complement each other in terms of what's realistic. So the Lego figure is far too short for his width. The Lego train tracks are a little too wide compared to the Lego minifigure. So whichever size you decide to build in, you kind of have to make some concessions based on what you want to do. So let me talk about the power systems for a moment here. So the official Lego train, again, uses a AAA battery box. So that's pretty small, and it fits nicely inside the Lego train locomotive. But for some of us builders, that box doesn't fit very nicely inside. I can show you an example here. So this is a locomotive I've been working on. It's not done yet, and no points for guessing what railroad it is. But you can see here, let me turn the camera right, I've got two motors. I've got two motors in there and the IR receiver, but the battery box is just a little too big to fit in there. And there's also the problem of the battery box, you know, the AAA batteries, when you have batteries in a toy, you know how it gets when the batteries are starting to drain and the toy starts slowing down and not working as well. And it's not fun. It's not satisfying. So some of us Lego train enthusiasts have started looking for other solutions, and I found mine in the form of LiPo batteries. So this is the kind of battery you would find in, you know, say a remote control car or maybe a drone, something like that. And what I had to do is I had to solder a cable so I can get the JST battery lead and connect that to the Lego Power Functions plug. But once I have that, I can plug this battery in to any of my trains and they will run. And the thing about these batteries is they give out constant power. So even when the battery is starting to drain, the train does not slow down. And I will caution people, if you're looking to get into LiPo batteries, just make sure you're careful. The basic rule comes down to don't ever leave them unattended while charging. Keep them in a safe, you know, an environment that doesn't have a lot of temperature changes, that sort of thing. You know, they're perfectly safe as long as you care for them properly. So let's see, what's next? Let's talk about track for a minute. So again, I talked about this Lego train track has the metal tips on it, but they don't produce that track anymore. They produce all plastic track. So once again, I'm going to turn my camera over here. Let's see. Actually, you know what? Let's just pick up the whole thing so we're not at a weird angle. There we go. Get these out of the way. So Lego train track currently comes in 5 official pieces. So you have the straight section, you have the curved section, you have this flexible section. You see it's got a little bit of wiggle to it. And then you have I'm going to get this wrong because I'm backwards, a left switch and a right switch. And they are turned by flipping these yellow levers. So another problem us Lego train enthusiasts had to overcome was this super tight radius. So this is an appreciable radius in model railroading terms of about 12 inches or about 40 Lego studs. And, you know, for the regular size Lego trains, that's acceptable. It doesn't look too bad. But when you start getting into these larger trains, come on, get on the track. No, don't have your pieces fall off. You know, it doesn't look quite right because it's just such a tight corner for such a large train. So what are we going to do? Well, the advent of the plastic track was a blessing in disguise for the Lego train enthusiasts. Certainly we lamented the loss of our track power, but the all plastic track made it easier for third-party companies to produce custom pieces of track. So let me talk about just a couple of those. So this here is what we call an R56 curve for radius 56 studs. If we compare that to the conventional Lego train curve, the radius of about 40 studs, let's see, get my camera angle. So you can see this one is just a little bit wider. And the radius increases every 16 studs so that, sorry, I lost my train of thought again. It's very early in the morning over here. I'm not much of a morning person. These radius increases by 16 studs, so it will fit on sort of the grid of Lego train tracks. So that solved our problem with curves, but what else are we going to do? We need switches that aren't quite so tight, because look at this. This is effectively a number 3 switch. If we talk about the number of a switch, what we're looking at is how far the diverging route gets from the main route when it goes a certain distance away. So it's for every this far forward, how far forward does it get away? And this is a number 3 switch. So for 3 units this way, it goes 1 unit that way. And for reference, most model trains start with, say, number 6 switches, maybe number 4s if they're more toy-like. So those switches didn't work for us. So then we enter the R104 switch. So this is a 3D printed piece of track made by a company called Trix Bricks. So it comes apart in all these sections so they can print each piece nice and small. But as you can tell just by looking at it, the appreciable radius of the switch, oh, come on, a little tricky to get it back together there. There we go. The appreciable radius of the switch is a lot more gentle than the conventional Lego switch. I will also observe that you might be thinking, looking at this super tight circle here, you say, oh, well, if you run the Lego train at full speed, won't it just fly off the corners? And the answer to that is yes. And Lego describes this as a feature, not a bug. Certainly, if you look up Lego train videos on YouTube, you'll find plenty of videos of Lego trains crashing all over the place. Let's see, where do we need to go next? Oh, and I should point out, so again, this piece was 3D printed. This piece is injection molded. So of course, injection molding is more expensive, but the quality is much higher and in terms of how well the track is made. This piece is made by a company called Brick Tracks. So let's see, who's next? We talked about 6 wide. Let's talk about the wheels. Let me get this wheel off of here again. So this is a conventional Lego train wheel. We saw that earlier. And if I take these wheels out, this is what I end up with. See, I just have this metal axle with 2 wheels on it, and the wheels actually come off. So I can have these in 3 pieces. This is how it comes, and you have to assemble that when you get your Lego train set. Now, the problem with this is that, it's good enough for a kid playing with toys, but for us adults who want to play with toys, there's a lot of friction in here. This is a friction-bearing wheel set, so the trains don't roll very smoothly. So what can we do about that? Enter the bearing wheel set. So let me hold this up nice and close to the camera. So this is a Lego train bearing wheel set. Oh, come on. There we go. Nice and easy to see. And it's going to be a little tricky to notice. I'm going to get it real close up here. So you can see that metal axle is going through a roller bearing. There we go. It's focusing for me now. The metal axle is going through a roller bearing, and the roller bearing is kind of jammed into one of these special Lego Technic bricks that has the holes in the side. So what does that mean in terms of Lego train performance? Well, we're going to move the camera around for a minute here. Let me get my camera set up just how we want it for this demonstration. I'm going to turn it around. It might be a little unsmooth. Bear with me if you'd be so kind. So here's my show layout behind me. There we go. All right, so on the inside track, I have this official Lego train size train with the friction-bearing wheel sets. And what we're going to do, we're just going to give them a little push. So that's not great performance. It could be better. So what happens when I push this gondola car that's sitting on roller bearings? I'm going to give them the same sort of little push. And there it goes. It's gone. It's just going to disappear. So the roller bearing wheel sets also will take much more weight. Part of the problem with those friction bearing wheel sets is that they won't take a lot of weight. If there's too much Lego pushing down on them, then you get even more friction. But the roller bearing wheel sets will take pretty much any weight of Lego train. Adjust my camera angle here. There we go. Let's talk about couplers. So the Lego trains use these magnetic couplers. Let me get one off of here. So if I hold these up close, I'm making a mess of everything over here. So here is the earlier style of coupler. Let me hold that up so we can see it. So what you have is a magnet that flips around. So when the trains get close to each other, this magnet will flip around so the correct pole is facing the opposing magnet, and they'll couple together. And once again, that's pretty good for a kid's toy, but for those of us who are out of our minds and are trying to build more serious Lego trains, it's not enough. Here's another example. So the newer models have a magnet that flips around inside this casing. Come on, you want to focus on that? There we go. So the magnet flips around inside this casing here rather than being exposed because, choking hazard. But the problem with that was these magnets are not terribly strong, especially when it comes to these big, heavy freight cars. So what are we going to do about that? Well, rare earth magnets. So let me hold up another coupler here. Don't get it too close. I don't want to ruin my webcam. Come on. There we go. Yes. So if you can, I don't know how well you can see that. It wants to focus for me. Come on, focus, 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 camera. All right, it'll focus in a second. There is a silver disc attached to this coupler. So when I put this silver disc on there we go, we've got some focus. That increases the magnetic strength of the coupler by quite a lot. So I can run a 24-car train without problems. The record that I am aware of, I'm sure someone's going to tell me after this, they're going to say, oh, Monty, you forgot all about this other awesome record for Lego train length. I can run about 23 cars. A friend of mine ran a 40-car train at another show using these kinds of magnets. And you could probably go even further. I think the motors and the engines would give out first. And let's talk about the motors for just a moment. So once again, this motor here, this official Lego train motor, all you have to do is stick it underneath your Lego train and it'll go. But the trouble with that is those motors aren't terribly strong, and they're also unrealistically fast. At full speed, that motor is in 1/48 scale going about 90 scale miles an hour. And that's just a little ridiculous if you're running, say, American freight trains. If you're running a high-speed train of some kind, that makes sense, but doesn't always work. So Lego makes a range of other motors. So this is the one I like to use. This is a Power Functions L motor. So you see that orange bit in the middle is the actual bit of the motor that turns. And what you do is you plug a gear into that. Let me get out my example half-built locomotive here. You want to focus for me, camera? So you can see I've got this big old gear here connected to the motor. And then what'll happen is I'll stick another gear underneath it to an axle that goes through the locomotive and comes out the bottom, and then that will drive the train. Now, you want to say, well, how much stronger is this motor compared to the Lego train, to the conventional train motor? Well, this motor, if I'm remembering right, has a little less than 1 Newton meter of torque. This motor has a little less than 7 Newton meters of torque. So that gets us a lot farther in terms of strength and pulling power. The only trouble is this motor is a little slow. So what I've done is I've geared it up. So my trains at full speed run at about 40 scale miles an hour, which, it's not great fast, but it's enough for my purposes. So about 2/3 of my locomotives use this type of motor, and then the other third use this train motor, just because, first for the sake of variety, and also because kids say, why isn't that train going fast? All right, what have we not covered yet? Let me check out my script over here. Ballasting. So these tracks, they're perfectly good, if you want to throw them down on the floor for an afternoon of fun, running your train through all the rooms of your apartment. I'm sure we might have seen the viral videos of that happening. But it's not terribly realistic. What's going on here? The rails are the same color as the ties. The ties are kind of an unrealistic thickness. So what are we going to do about that? Let's go to our next example. So we will ballast the track. So we build up Lego bricks around the track, and we use different pieces for narrower ties. So this is still this same piece of track. All I did was I built up some gray bricks around the sides, so it looks like, light colored ballast. And then I have my dark brown ties here. And as you can see, they're a much more reasonable thickness compared to the size of the track. And this is still sectional track. It will still connect it together just like that. And then you have this nice realistic track. And once again, I can connect it to a regular piece just like that. All right. Is there anything we haven't covered yet? Let's see. We talked about the wheel sets. We talked about the track. We talked about the power. We talked about the batteries and the custom-sized trains. Oh, a little more about these custom-sized trains. So, as I mentioned in the first half of my presentation, this car was not designed by me. This was designed by the folks at Brick Train Depot. So what happens is, if you order Lego Train instructions, what you will get is a set of instructions and a parts list. So that parts list, what you do is you plug it into a Lego parts buying website. Brick Link is the most popular. There's also Brick Owl. And you will buy the parts that you need to build this car. And then all the parts orders arrive. You might have to order from a few different sellers depending on what you need. And then once all your parts orders have arrived, you follow the instructions and you build the car just like a regular Lego set. Because some of the struggle for us is that Lego as a company is not strictly interested in trains. Now, I say that at the moment, and I've been feeling that for many years, but the truth is that they're actually coming out with a very realistic train set very soon. They've designed a Swiss crocodile locomotive that will be released on July 1st. So, we want to say, oh, Lego doesn't care about the Lego train hobbyists. They just want to make kids' toys, which for most of the time has been true. But now suddenly they're making this realistic train, which has caught a lot of us by surprise. They also made the Disney train, which came out recently. I look forward to acquiring an example of that. But that one was also more realistic, because the thing is, there aren't a lot of Lego train enthusiasts in the world. If you look at a given Lego club, the number of people in that club out of, let's say, 60 people, the number of people in that club who are going to be seriously interested in trains is probably going to be less than 5 people. The rest of the people in that Lego club, they like Lego Star Wars, they like Lego Mindstorms, the robotics programming. And what happens is the Lego train people reach out to hobby shows and say, oh, we'd like to bring a Lego train setup. So they have all the Lego people come and we all build different things for the setup. And then we just put a circle of track around the outside. So let's see, what else do we want to cover? I think I went a little off the rails for a second there. So I think that's about the point where I'm going to start winding down. We're going to get to questions in a minute here. But I think the main question is on everyone's mind is, why are we going to all this trouble to make these super complicated Lego trains? Why are we 3D printing track and modifying parts and, designing these crazy extra large cars? And you're certainly right. There's a lot of fuss here. And some people would say, are you getting the gain out of it? I certainly am. I think a lot of other people are. And you say, well, why not conventional model trains? Well, a lot of us Lego train hobbyists, we also collect conventional model trains. But, it comes down to the nostalgia, I think. You think about a lot of model railroaders now. You say to them, what got you started? Why did you start building a model train layout? And they say, well, I had a Lionel set around the Christmas tree when I was a kid, or my dad and I built an American Flyer set in the basement. And for us, it's the same thing. We grew up on Lego. The Lego has been the most popular building toy in the world for decades. So we just have this nostalgic connection. We have this kind of just this kindred understanding of Lego parts, and we want to build our trains out of Lego because of that. That's what we're doing, because we're trying to kind of do it's modeling in a different medium, I will say. You use plastic and foam and paint and that sort of thing, and we're doing the same thing. We're building a model train layout. We're just using a different medium to do so. And I think that covers all the bits I want to talk about. So can we open the floor for questions? Where'd everybody go? We got Martin and Jordan. There we go. Let's open the floor for questions if we can.
Well, I do have a couple. How
Please.
long did your how long did it take you to design and build the bascule bridge you had?
Oh, good heavens. That took, I would say 4 months, but what happened was it actually sat on a shelf. Here, let me get my camera back up here so you can see me as I talk with all my beautiful hair. So it was about 4 months to build it total, but what happened was I got to the point where I had to design. In fact, the bascule bridge is right behind us. Let's just look over at the bridge for a second. After all, it is my most popular piece. Let me make sure it's nicely in frame. Is that good? A little bit this way. A little bit this way. There we go. So I managed to build this triangle piece right here, and I had the gear design. The bit I was having trouble with was this superstructure up here. So what I ended up doing was I had to shelve this project for about 2 years before I finally understood how I was going to build this in this shape here, like getting these proportions right so the bridge would function properly. I actually found the answer on an N scale form. Someone had drawn an extremely rudimentary sketch of a bascule bridge, but it had just enough information that the light bulb went off, and I saw, oh, this is how you need to do. This is about 1.5 times as long as this side. So this rectangle, right now it's a rectangle. When I lift the bridge up, it'll kind of squeeze into a parallelogram. Is that it? I don't remember all my elementary school geometry there. So yeah, about 4 months with a 2-year gap. Next question.
Where did you get your decals? I've dabbled in the Lego train stuff.
Okay.
Where did you get your decal / stickers for some of your rolling stock?
So pretty much all of my decals come from OK Brickworks. So it's a gentleman named Andy. He operates out of the United States. I think he's in Ohio, but he produces the decals for the vast majority of Lego train builders. So, if you wanted to make your own decals, you can buy some like clear vinyl to print on. But the problem is most home printers don't do a great job of that. So he actually ended up investing in a very nice printer that can print on clear vinyl, and it prints whites really nice. So then we get these lovely realistic decals. So the way he works is you send him your model. You say, this is what I built a model of. Here's the prototype photo. And, can you make me the road name and the road numbers? And, I know he's pretty backed up right now because everybody's building Lego trains in quarantine. But, after not several weeks, some amount of time measured in weeks, he gets back to you and says, here's the stickers I've got that for your build. Is this what you want? And you approve it, or you say, I need to fix this. And then once it's approved, he will print them and mail them to you. And I believe he does ship internationally, but lately it's been troublesome with the whole COVID thing. So he hasn't been doing a lot of international orders, or at least if he does, he's like, yo, it's going to be a while. It's going to be a wait. So next question.
So you've mentioned that there's several other third-party kit designers.
Yes.
I know Brick Model Railroader's one from the AML podcast.
Yes, Brick Model Railroader. I have a couple of their kits on my workbench. I haven't finished them yet because I'm still waiting on parts orders. Yeah, it's Brick Model Railroader, and then this tank car was designed by Brick Train Depot. Okay. So those are the two major producers. There's also like all kinds of websites and other independent producers. There's a gentleman called Tony Sava who produces instructions. You can go to a website called Rebrickable that has different instructions on it. That sort of thing. There's a lot of options out there simply because Lego isn't very interested in producing Lego train sets, simply because they don't sell as well as Star Wars or a fire station or something like that. So next question, please.
Well, one of the things that I was thinking was, now when you get an idea in your head to design, I know some Lego builders use one of the Lego designing softwares. How do you go about it?
Personally, I prefer to just build in bricks. Part of the appeal of the model railroading hobby for me is that I can get away from the computer for the most part. So, I just sit there with my bricks. I have a workshop where all my parts are organized in little tiny drawers, and I'll just build by hand. And it's the same process that somebody on a computer would use with Lego computer-aided design software. It's just trial and error. Do these pieces fit together like how I'm thinking? Does it look right? Yes, no, it doesn't look right. Let's try again. Let's build it again. So, I come back to this locomotive I'm working on. This is an Illinois Central GP10, and it's about halfway done right now. I'm still working out how I want to do the details on the roof, fit the cab in right, just all kinds of little bits and bobs like that. But, it's mostly for me designing by hand. Other people design on the computer, and that works well for them. I tried it, just wasn't quite for me.
Have you ever used plans like actual scaled down plans?
Close. I've found technical drawings of some of the locomotives I've built so I can get the right, or at least get close to the right proportions of, length, height. The nose should be this long, the cab should be this long, the hood should be this high. I've used technical drawings like that, and I've scaled them down. There's a great website. If you look up Lego Stud Calculator, I think it is, or Lego Unit Converter, it'll give you the instructions, or not the instructions. You punch in your numbers. You say, okay, I need 70 feet, and I need it in 1/48 scale, and it'll tell you how many Lego bricks long that will be.
All right. So the whole roller bearing idea, where did that originate in the Lego community?
That actually came from the same chap who did OK Brickworks, who does the decals. If I'm remembering my story correctly, I'm sure someone will message me and say, "Oh no, you've got it all wrong." But basically, he's a printer tech, if I'm remembering correctly. Andy, I'm sorry if I'm butchering this story, but he had to order a tiny roller bearing piece for a printer, and then he said, "I wonder how small you can get these roller bearings in." And he found out that there was a size of roller bearing that fits almost perfectly in the Lego Technic hole, and it would fit a Lego train axle. And so he put those together with the glued wheels, and then we ended up with these roller bearing wheel sets that everybody was using. Before that, people tried brass tubing. So if I take apart the wheel set again here, so we have the metal axle, and before we had roller bearings, what people did was they had brass tubing that you could again stick through these tiny holes in the side of the brick, and then that would be fairly frictionless. It was an improvement over the existing Lego train wheel sets. It just wasn't the end-all be-all answer just yet, because what you have to remember is that a lot of these developments we're looking at only came up in the last few years. Like the wider radius curves, we've only had that for maybe 5 or 6 years at this point. The same thing with custom control systems. I forgot to talk about, there's things called S-Brick or PFX Brick, BUAs. They're different versions of smart bricks. So, this IR remote receiver for a Lego train is, it works, and you can plug in a motor, you could plug in something else, like maybe some lights, but it's an 8-step speed controller. And, some people say the IR remote system doesn't work very well for them. So there's an advancement, not just for Lego trains, but for all kinds of Lego hobbyists, where you can get a different variety of smart bricks. You can control it from your phone or from a computer or something like that, or a special remote. And then you have better speed control. You can have faster speeds. You can control lights. You can add sound, all kinds of different options like that.
Okay. Now here was something that I know I've seen somewhere, but they've talked about with the advantage of dead rail coming into the model railroad industry. Is there a chance you guys could eventually get DCC decoders?
Oh, that's already been done.
Oh, it has.
Yeah, so let's go back to 9-volt for a second. So 9-volt, again, it runs on track power with the metal rails. And here's my entire motor. And I'm going to regret doing this because I'm going to mess it all up. I'm going to open the motor here, which Lego would rather you didn't do, but it is entirely possible. So let me hold this up to the camera. Come on, camera. So there's the entire motor system. You've just got a little motor in there and some gears. And what some people started working out was that you could jam a DCC decoder in there, like an N-scale one or something. And then you can hook up a DCC transformer to the 9-volt tracks, and it'll run. Now, the only problem with doing that, oops, camera fixed there. The only problem with doing that is the 9-volt system, again, 9 volts, and I think DCC puts out like 12. Now, I have done some experiments with friends. You can up the voltage on these. I think the highest I've heard of is like 24 volts. So these motors will do it, and they'll zip off at 300 scale miles an hour. But yeah, DCC with Lego trains is possible. Personally, it's a matter of preference, because I used to use the 9-volt system for my show layout. So I was running on track power, and part of the disadvantage of that was I had to sit there at the throttles all day inside the layout so I could control the trains and, more importantly, stop them if something went wrong. So when I switched to the remote control system, I was suddenly able, I can walk around the layout, I can talk to people, I can control 2 trains on the same track. So, the dead rail, at least for me, it's what I want. For the metal track enthusiasts, which there are still plenty of, there's a company called PFX, and they're working on coming out with a new metal track system. So you'll have the same, wider radius curves, custom switches, roughly the same motors, but it'll run off track power. And people are already talking about, can we add some DCC to that? Sorry, I should be looking at the camera. I'm looking over here at my laptop at you guys. We got time for a couple more questions if there are any.
One is, how do you affix the roller bearings into the Technic brick?
Let's see that. You need an arbor press, basically. Some people have had luck with like pliers and that sort of thing. You can just buy them from Brick Model Railroader or Brick Train Depot. If you're only building a couple of freight cars, or you're only building like one car every few months, I would say it's much easier to just buy them pre-made. But if you're like me and you're doing this big crazy layout with dozens of pieces of rolling stock, you get an arbor press and you can jam them in there. And I get my roller bearings from overseas. So, little tip, if you look for a roller bearing at a hobby shop, in the United States, for instance, they're going to be expensive. But if you order some roller bearings from overseas, from China, from the factory where they make them, you can get them pretty cheap. The only downside of that is, say a bag of 100, there might be, 5 or 10 duds, ones that just don't work right. Yeah, that's how we can get the roller bearings in there.
It's amazing the size of roller bearings you can get today. I do a bit with 187 scale RC cars, and the roller bearings we're using have actually got a 0.8 millimeter internal diameter.
That's pretty small.
They're really tiny, yes. Yep. So we got any more questions there, Jordan? Or
we do have one. So one was, how much would a typical boxcar, we'll say a 40-foot boxcar, cost?
Yes. So Brick Model Railroader does put out an instruction set for a PS1 40-foot boxcar, and it kind of depends on the color. So, brown is probably the most common color that people build in, and I'm told that if you build the Brick Model Railroader PS1 40-foot boxcar in brown, it'll run you about $100. It varies a little bit, but about $100. And, then that number can skyrocket, because the trouble is some pieces are very rare colors. Like getting this tank car in teal, I had to place 5 different orders to get enough of these teal slope pieces. Let me tear one off here so I can show you if I can. There we go. Just go ahead and ruin all my models. So to get enough of this teal slope piece, I think I needed about 200 of them to make this car happen. That took 5 separate parts orders to find people that had enough of them. And I don't remember how much it was. I actually try not to keep track of how much it cost for my Lego trains, because I'm very afraid of that number. But I will say I work multiple jobs. I'm not just a music teacher. I work in a warehouse. I'm a stagehand. I had another job in retail until recently. It's an expensive hobby for sure. Regular model trains or Lego trains. All right, we've got a few minutes left. Got one more question, maybe? Anybody got anything?
Okay.
I believe that is it.
That is all.
About it. You're more than welcome to head over to the chat. The only thing we're going to do now is we've got this thing called the Wheel of Chat, which is about to come up. So what we're going to do is spin the wheel. It'll come up with a subject, and then all the people in the chat can answer that question. while we get our next presenter, Miles, up and ready for his clinic. So, Monty, thank you a million for a very informative clinic about Lego.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to share my trains with you. You know, if you see us Lego train guys at a show, we'd love to chat trains with you all day.
Not a problem.
So you all have a good one. I will see everybody next time.
Okay, so let's hit the wheel of chat. Let's hit the spin the wheel. Let's see what we get, what the question's going to be. And the question is, what is the current time with you? So everybody out there in the chat, put in your current time and probably where you are as well. And we'll be back in a little bit with Miles Hale.